I want to say I showed you the trailer, Mike, a while ago, like at least a year ago. And then around the same time I showed it to Heather, and Heather was like, someone talked about this with you yet? And I was like, no. And then you had kind of had the same reaction. And then we never got around to talking about it until now. And I actually am glad that we waited a while, because I feel like there was a need to build this movie up. Because I feel like if we had seen this movie without having seen some other Indian cinema, we might have thought that this is like the craziest movie we've ever seen. And there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie that is pretty fucking insane, frankly, if you just boil it down to the basic ideas of what's going on. But I don't think this movie would have hit the same if we had watched it when we were initially trying to talk about it about like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I think we were talking about the Corridor Crew had been doing some special effects breakdowns, and they were talking about the one where it's the little Shah Rukh Khan.
which Heather and I have seen and talked about.
But I hadn't heard of Fan, and then you showed me that trailer, and yeah, I was like, oh, please, let's do it. Let's do this thing.
Because it is, I mean, again, like that, well, we'll get to it here in a second, but to take a minor aside, Heather, you and I did talk about Zero, which that episode has not aired yet on the Bollywood Cinema Club. But do you want to tell the listeners of this show what Zero is? Just give them a little taste of what that is, because I just want to have to hear you explain it, frankly, because it's as insane as this movie's premise, frankly.
I would actually say it's more insane
than this movie.
Okay. Yeah. So I hope everybody's sitting down. So the premise is Shah Rukh Khan plays as Mike alluded to, he plays a little person, and he is made a little person through the technology of computer graphics, and he falls in love with this brilliant woman who is this amazing scientist, and she's beautiful, but she has, I believe, did she have cerebral palsy, Chris?
Yep, she did.
And and the thing that to me is the most nuts about this movie, because if you're gonna, you just think, oh my God, this is gonna be the most offensive thing, and it's not. It's really like not offensive. I mean, it depending. I mean, but I mean, it's not as offensive as you would think.
Right. Agreed. And I think that's a testament to the people making it, is kind of what it feels like, that it works as well as it does. Because I remember when I started watching it, and then when you and I were talking about it before we started recording, the fact that there's a woman who does not have cerebral palsy playing a character with cerebral palsy would be the actual thing most people would be hung up on that movie about. But it's because they juxtapose that with miniature Shah Rukh Khan that it somehow doesn't seem that offensive, or as not poorly intended. They didn't have poor intentions behind it, is kind of what it feels like.
It has a lot of heart. I will say that if my memory is correct, because it's been a little while since we talked about it, is that his height seems to range a little bit in the movie, where it's like he's an 8th grader. Now he's 2 feet tall. I don't know. It's a little random. But yeah, I think the most shocking thing of that was like, I'm like, this movie kind of works. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It 100% should not work on paper. It does. It has a lot of heart. We're not saying it's perfect, but it's got a lot of heart. And juxtapose that with tonight's topic, where
you beat me to it, Heather.
Oh crap! I'm sorry.
No, good. I'm glad you saw exactly probably what we're going to be saying about this movie coming right out of your mouth before. I was like, it feels like Heather's describing this movie too somehow.
Oh my gosh. Well, we don't have a tiny Shah Rukh Khan, but we get 2 Shah Rukh Khans for the price of 1.
And this time he's not playing someone else, but he isn't.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, he's played doubles several times, according to the trivia, and that is not shocking, because I think we've talked on your show before, Chris, that these Indian actors love to play doubles, and they love to double themselves, whether it's, I mean, even in Jawan, the one that we talked about, he's the old Shah Rukh Khan and the young Shah Rukh Khan. You know,
we never talked about that, by the way.
We didn't talk about that?
Oh, we still have never talked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we talked about Jailer, but Jawan has it. The one Richard and I talked about that has Amir Khan, and the third one, Doom 3, has it. It's honestly a very prevalent thing in these Indian cinema movies. And on this episode of the Culture Cast, I am still your host, Chris Dashu, much to the chagrin of many, and it's my birthday month, so we get to talk about the movies I want to talk about, which is Indian cinema. It's also Mike's birthday month, but Mike is not as vain as I am, and he doesn't take advantage of it like I do.
Bro, I'll just take all of fucking May, buddy.
Hell yeah. But on this episode of the Culture Cast, I am joined by Mondo Heather's Heather Drain.
Well, hello. It's also my birthday month too.
Oh, that's right. God, I always forget that there's like 7 of us, I think, that have a birthday.
The Aries and Taurians are just coming in full force.
Right. We're all here, and we're all heavy emotion havers, according to the Zodiac thing, I believe is what it says. And we're also joined by the projection booth's Mike White.
You can just call me Junior Mike White.
Oh, Jesus.
The way you said that, Mike, was everything. That's my new ringtone.
That was pretty good. And yeah, if you can't tell, and you may not, we're going to be talking about a film from 2016 that is an Indian cinema film, and this time it is Bollywood. You can't get any more Bollywood than Shah Rukh Khan, folks. We're going to be talking about 2016's double Shah Rukh Khan vehicle, Fan.
कनेक्शन भी ना कमाल की चीज है, बस हो गया तो हो गया। वाईफाई ब्लूटूथ से भी ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है अपना कनेक्शन। उस स्टार नहीं है, दुनिया है मेरी। दूर से तो कच्चे वाले फैंस तालियां हो जाते हैं, मैं तो गले लगा के दे गया हूँ उसको ट्रॉफी। जब देखो आर्यन आर्यन आर्यन, लगता क्या है तू आर्यन खन्ना का फैन।
A small birthday gift to the love of my life, Aryan Khanna.
Happy birthday, senior.
फैन है, अपने आप को जूनियर आर्यन खन्ना बोलता है।
Listen to me carefully. जो तुमने किया है वो गलत है। मैंने इतना कुछ किया आपके लिए, और
तुम होते कौन हो मेरे लिए कुछ भी करने वाले?
आपका फैन?
तुम नहीं हो मेरे फैन।
ऐसा मत बोलो, आपकी लाइफ के 5 मिनट भी नहीं मिल सकते मुझे क्या?
मेरी लाइफ है, मेरा टाइम है, तुम्हें 5 सेकंड भी क्यों दो?
पहले फैन स्टार के पीछे भागता था, अब स्टार फैन के पीछे भागेगा।
मैं आप लोगों के जरिए सबको वार्न करना चाहता हूं, वो कभी भी किसी को भी चोट पहुंचा सकता है।
गौरव है तो आर्यन है, गौरव नहीं तो आर्यन कुछ भी नहीं।
So, like I've mentioned, the film came out in 2016. It's directed by Manish Sharma, based on a screenplay by Habib Fasal and Shirai Kataria. It's produced by Aditya Chopra, which means it's a Yash Raj Films film, which means it's as high production value as you can get in Indian cinema, folks. If you see YRF in front of things, you know that at least the movie is going to look amazing and probably most likely have some of the biggest names in Indian cinema acting in them. This film is no different. It stars Shah Rukh Khan as not just one, but 2 characters, one of them a thinly veiled version of himself. I guess the dastardly bastard version of himself, or maybe just himself. I don't know the man. And then a younger version of himself, but not him specifically, a person, a doppelganger, as it were, someone who has been either graced or cursed to look like the most important actor of modern contemporary Indian cinema and the biggest actor in the world. It's not really hammered home in the movie that this character is that, but if we're talking about in terms of the actual actor Shah Rukh Khan, to look like Shah Rukh Khan in reality and not lean into it, I would assume would be a thing some people may or may not do. But as it happens in the film, the character of Junior Aryan Khanna Gaurav Chandna takes it upon himself to insert himself into his hero's life by beating up a rival star and then continuing to stalk him in various ways. There's a lot going on in this movie. There is only one musical number, which is pretty crazy. If you even want to consider it a musical number, it's more of a diegetic musical number. But I'm going to kick it to you first, Heather, because I want to know both of y'all's opinions really badly. But Heather, I'm going to kick it to you first. What did you think of Fan?
Wow. This movie, it's interesting. It's really interesting. I think parts of it are a little messy, which we'll go into it. I think there are parts of it that are really good. There are things I definitely loved about it. I feel a little mixed on it. But I wouldn't say it's a bad movie by any means. I mean, it's Shah Rukh Khan. SRK and anything's always like a great thing. But I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. There's some twists I really did enjoy. But like you, I'm really curious as hell. Like, what are you two gonna say about it as we dive in? Because there's like there's some choices. There's some choices made in this film that some of them are great, and some of them I was like, oh, okay, that's. Well, we're doing that. Okay.
I would say instead of capital C choices, this movie makes all caps choices. Choices. Mike, what did you think of the choices that Fan 2016 makes?
There were some interesting, like you said, choices that were made. I've kind of seen this movie before. I think Fred Durst directed a movie that was somewhat like this.
God in heaven.
I mean, there is The Fan from 1981, I think it was, the one with Michael Biehn, super young Michael Biehn, and Lauren Bacall.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also The Fan with Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro. There's also The Fan with Patton Oswalt. So we've seen these kind of, fan worship gone awry stories many times, but we've not seen, or at least I haven't seen, where the fan is a dead ringer for, kind of a dead ringer for the main character, though not really. And it feels like certain times people can see that he looks like Shah Rukh Khan, and other times they can't. It's very odd. And then the weird thing, how it's a very like straight ahead drama film and a thriller and these kind of things. But then when you get into the action scenes, we've talked about this before, Chris, that these are superheroes. Like suddenly they just become superheroes for like 10, 15 minutes, and then they go back to being normal people. But those action scenes, I mean, it's like taken from another movie and plopped into this movie, basically. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this one. How about you, Chris?
Yeah. So this was, again, like I've kind of alluded to, a movie that I have been putting off watching because, again, like this is a movie I've stopped myself from watching several times because I was like, I want to watch it when we're like close to this, not super far ahead of time, because I know I will want to talk about it with y'all ahead of time. And yeah, I mean, this movie shouldn't even work in a lot of ways. Like the conceit of Shah Rukh Khan is playing himself. Fine. Like you've alluded to, Mike, this has been a thing we've seen before. But then to have him in a dual role as the person obsessed with him, and it's not just him in makeup or just him dressed differently, which is normally, I mean, we're talking like a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie where it's just like, and they're two different people and they dress him differently. But I'm alluding to something more like The Parent Trap, where you have the same actor playing two different characters. Here, instead of just having it be Shah Rukh Khan, because again, you couldn't realistically get away with Shah Rukh Khan in his mid-50s or early 50s playing a 19-year-old version of himself or 18-year-old version of himself. They do what is one of the most amazing CGI jobs I've ever seen. I do not say that lightly, because if this did not work, the movie doesn't work at all, because in a lot of ways, it is the junior Junior's character movie throughout. We see Senior a lot, but he's more or less in the background until Junior inserts himself into his life. But again, it's still Shah Rukh Khan playing the other character. And somehow, and I'm not even, you know what, I'll wind that back. Not somehow, it's because Shah Rukh Khan is an amazing actor. That's why. He's I think watching this movie would actually lead me to believe, and in a lot of ways go out on a limb and say he might actually be like the greatest actor of all time, because this movie has no right being as good as it is just based on the premise alone. Because if this movie was made in the States, I think it would get laughed out of the cinemas. I think people would be like, oh, that looks like shit. Oh, they're Uncanny Valley. And what's even more insane is it's not Uncanny Valley at all. Frankly, it's I don't know, it's shocking to me how good the CGI looks in this movie. Not because of where it's from, but because, I mean, again, it's like they took the budget of a Marvel movie and put it into one character, which, I mean, you know, if you're going to do that, that's how you do it. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. There are some parts, like you've alluded to, Mike and Heather, that there are going to be some questions raised, and namely the action scenes are one of them. But I was kind of charmed by how insane this movie is in what it's doing, and that really isn't where it stops. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going, almost to a fault, frankly. But yeah, so let's just kind of, I would say let's start with the not the elephant in the room, as it were, but the biggest thing. Let's talk about Shah Rukh Khan as this Junior character, which feels like a fully formed character, at least to me.
Yeah, no, it's weird because the CGI, like, because it kept being, you can't help but be like, okay, that's Shah Rukh Khan, but he's littler, like he's skinnier, and they gave him what looks like prosthetic teeth because he's got a little more of an overbite and a smaller nose, which the character ends up kind of pointing out later on. But yeah, it's this character is so strange to me because it's like the first, and that's the thing, this film has so many like tonal moments that totally go whiplash, like, and like the action scenes are a huge part of that, but part of it is like the beginning, it's like, it's even the music, like the music swells, like, oh, isn't this charming, look at this young man from Delhi, he loves his favorite actor. Okay, sure, his wallpaper's literally like a photo montage of this man and his wallpaper like on his phone, but his parents don't seem that concerned about it, which that was kind of a question I was like, when I was doing my notes on this, initially was like, what's the deal with his parents? Like, they're supportive, which is good, but it's kind of like, you think if you had like, especially a son who's basically a young adult, and they're still like, oh my God, this actor I love, like, you know, like, I'm like, is somebody going to sit him down and be like, it's good to have heroes, but...
Well, it's one thing to have heroes, but another thing that your son looks like the dead ringer of his idol that's where things get really weird. And yeah, I agree. It's like, they are very supportive of him to the point where I'm just like, really? Okay. This seems like it has gone past fandom into obsession, even just with him and obviously in his wallpaper and everything that he's doing. They won't give him the money to go up to celebrate Shah Rukh Khan. And I know I'm saying Shah Rukh Khan, even though it's a character, but he's so Shah Rukh Khan. Yeah. I know that they're giving him they won't give him money to do that, but they will support him very much when it comes to the talent show where he wins the money to go up to celebrate the birthday of Shah Rukh Khan. But yeah, they seem supportive almost to a fault, I suppose.
Completely, like the blind leading the blind almost. And it's weird. This character is kind of like, it's weird because like at the beginning and the end of the film, it's almost like this bookend of like, oh, look at this charming man. I won't jump ahead to the end, but there's a part at the end that I have to admit I laughed very hard because it just seemed so inappropriate. But yeah, and so it's like, okay, we know this guy's going to be a stalker. I mean, it's even without all of the red flags in the movie, it's like the trailer. So it's like, you're like, okay, when is this worm going to turn? Because you know it's coming.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think for me, like I kind of mentioned, like the character works, but I don't think that the movie realizes that the character is working the way that it is intended. And I don't think the movie really ever acknowledges the success that it's having. It's trying to do something else almost the entire time. Like the music in a lot of the early scenes is kind of too upbeat for where we know this movie is going. It's like in Body Double having the Beach Boys. Like this doesn't jive with what the movie's tone is. Because like you've both already talked about, the movie is about a stalker fan, hyper fan, who just happens to look like the person he's obsessed with. I mean, it's kind of, and I would actually say it's maybe the biggest failing of the movie is that the movie doesn't acknowledge he looks like him enough. It should be like a bigger deal. Like when he's in that crowd of people, they should be like looking behind when he's moving up and be like, holy shit, this guy looks like Shah Rukh Khan, because there's a scene after the intermission effectively of the movie where the Junior character puts on a disguise enough, and Groucho marks up himself, puts on a hoodie and some sunglasses, and boom, now he looks like Shah Rukh Khan. And he goes to Madame Tussauds and starts behaving bad, and people believe it's him just there. Like, it's only been a year later, give me a break. And like, that's the one thing the movie did not succeed at, and it's the thing that I don't know why the movie's not invested in acknowledging the fact that this is kind of not a horror movie, but it's horror adjacent. It's a thriller. It's single white female. I mean, you have a stalker who you can't get rid of, and this person is inserting themselves into your life, and because they look like you, they can do it even easier. The fact that they really never acknowledge that he looks just like him is a really strange choice, to me at least.
Yeah, I thought that 1 year later thing, I was like, well, he does look a little bit more like Shah Rukh Khan now, but not that much more. I was thinking like, oh, maybe he lost weight or did some this or did some that. Obviously, they probably changed the CG on his face a little bit, so he looks a little bit more like Shah Rukh Khan, of course. But yeah, I agree with you that it should have been a big deal. And I'm curious if audiences, were they supposed to think that this was more light and fluffy? I mean, we've got these freaking bullies in the movie within like 5-6 minutes of it opening, and they're real dicks to him. So I'm like, okay, this movie has some malice, even in these earliest scenes. It doesn't feel like it should be portrayed as, to your point, light and frothy when he's going up and, you know, like threatening to throw himself off of a train, but it's still played for laughs kind of thing. And it's not till he kidnaps Shah Rukh Khan's rival and starts to beat him up that you're just like, oh, no, things aren't good here whatsoever. But like you said, I think we knew the entire time that things were going to go bad.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest flaw with this movie a lot of ways is that I think the writing, because obviously the cast is tight. Like, it's not the cast, and certainly not SRK, but the writing is so uneven, and the musical stings at time are so uneven that it's kind of like, because one film that it made me think of, like, because like if you're into a character like this, it helps to kind of have like shades of gray, because not only does that make that kind of more intense, because you're like, at times you're like, man, you know, you can kind of see why this guy ended up like so messed up and so crazy and so obsessive, but it also like puts you in an uncomfortable headspace. And I love it when movies do that, like Fade to Black with Dennis Christopher, which is such a great film and talk about a great performance. But the thing that helps that film, you know, is that there are times you really do understand that character and you kind of understand why he's obsessive. And, you know, there's a lot of shades of gray there and it's pulled off well. Like SRK's got the talent to pull that shit off. I just wish that the writing would kind of match that. And, you know, like I kept hoping, and they kind of allude to it much later on in the film, of this being one of the biggest issues with this character with I'm going to say Guy Van, because that's my Southern accent coming out. but the non-Aryan SRK, the titular fan character, Junior. Well, yeah, Steve, we'll just call him Junior. I like that. Is like, because I kept hoping when the moment where he felt like his heroes let him down, is that, you know, are we going to see a moment where it fully crashes down on him that like, wow, I'm an empty vessel. Like, I've hinged my entire personality and existence on this person I don't even know. And, and they finally kind of acknowledged that at the very end. But I kept being like, man, come on, we got to go into that, because it's the whole thing with fan culture is that, with idolizing anybody, you're always in danger of sacrificing who you are as a soul, as an individual. And so I kind of wanted a little more of that.
I wondered if that was the moment when he tears down all of the pictures, because that's definitely a big turning point in this movie. But to your point, I think that's him getting rid of that fan version of himself and then going into more of the Avenger version of himself and wanting to take Shah Rukh Khan down a peg by going out and embarrassing him and causing all these scandals and all this. And it was interesting that it was the sex scandal, or basically the groping scandal, that really started to bring him down more than anything, more than the outrageous behavior of Madame Tussauds or any of that. It is the groping that happened. Just no one shows up for SRK's next concert or next event. And it was like, whoa, okay. I guess that's sending a message.
That's sex pest Shah Rukh Khan.
Yes.
I just love the term sex pest is such a great term.
He's not a sex pest in real life, though, right?
No.
He just plays one on TV.
Right. That's the thing. Like, Shah Rukh Khan, best I can tell, like, is nothing like the Aryan Khanna senior character of this movie. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy in this movie, quote unquote. And he's not really the film's antagonist. He's, not really a protagonist either. He's really just a supporting character to the main character's existence. But he's written in a way where he is somewhat redeemable. Somewhat being the key phrase. I don't think he's completely redeemable, but he's not painted as like a complete scumbag, because if he was painted as a complete scumbag, then you would feel like the fan character, the junior character, is justified in what he's doing, which would be an even more morally confused movie than the one we already get now. I'm not saying this movie is confused. I just really don't think this movie wants to have the conversation that you mentioned, Heather, which is when the parasocial relationship becomes too much and then it becomes like you actually believe you're part of this person's life. What does that mean? And how does that affect people, especially in Indian culture where these kinds of actors are venerated this way? Amitabh would go outside and wave to his fans every weekend. That's a thing like that. And there's nobody doing that here like that. There is fan culture in this country of Hollywood star tours, but it's different in India, and they really never get into it, which seems like such a strange missed opportunity.
I thought so too. I kept waiting for that, to be honest, because, I don't really think we have proper stars anymore in America, like especially compared to India. Like in India, stars are still stars. Like over here, like celebrity culture has taken over, I think, the star system. Like we don't really have an equivalent to say, like, if you're going back to old Hollywood or even like 60s Hollywood. Like, we don't have really like a Frank Sinatra or Clark Gable, a Jean Harlow or Sidney Poitier or, whoever. Like, I don't feel like any of the current actors have that star power. Nobody's like, there's fans, but it's celebrity culture. People are more enchanted, I think, in this country with celebrity and that sort of image than they are with actual, like, somebody see me, like they're almost like a magical charismatic, which is kind of what it feels like to me with Bollywood. It's like, to me, it's like almost like old Hollywood, where it's like the stars just seem truly interstellar.
Well, and I think there's also a stunning, and again, like maybe this is just me processing it through my Western, lens, but there is also a stunning lack of cynicism regarding movies. They are seen as a product, obviously, but I think they're appreciated as less of a product and more of a thing that is, you're going out of your way to go do this on the weekend, which is why it's kind of tonally inconsistent, because if you go see this movie with your family and there's a mother, a father, a son, and a daughter, they're kind of each going to get something out of this, because there's a little bit of action and there's a little bit of romance, neither of which really work in this movie. Actually, they almost work against the movie that this movie should have been if it was written a little differently and focused on a little different things. But again, it doesn't make that decision, which I'm perfectly fine with. It makes this movie exactly what it is. But at the same time, that's the way Indian cinema tends to be with these big movies, with these big actors, is there's a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah, a buffet.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, again, like the siloization of genres in this country with film is kind of, why we can't, watch certain movies and go, why? I don't really get that movie. A lot of that comes from the movie not necessarily falling into a tidy genre box because, again, some of the most interesting movies tend to have no genre at all. They're just kind of their own thing. And that's why I think Indian cinema for me is still so exciting because that joy of filmmaking has not been lost. I mean, even as weird and off the wall as this movie is, everybody in it is putting in 100%. I mean, and again, it wouldn't work half as well as it does if Shah Rukh Khan wasn't giving it his all, and he is. Imagine if he was just sleepwalking through this movie like Chevy Chase did in Oh Heavenly Dog, a movie where he plays two roles. Just, I don't care, it's whatever. Like, nope, this is a commitment to a role in a way that is, again, like, this movie is being centered around this one actor, so he better be giving it his all.
I'm surprised, too, at just all of the locations for this. I mean, that we actually go to London, and there are all these scenes in London where I'm like, do we really even need to be in London? Can this be someplace else? But it also sounds like he was shooting other films at the same time. I can't even imagine this guy's schedule. I mean, these people are superstars for a reason because they work hard. I mean, not only are they doing these crazy action scenes, but they're also memorizing all this choreography and doing all this singing and dancing. I mean, it's nuts to see what they go through for these films. And to your point, Chris, I totally agree as far as the lack of genre or just playing with genre. There are so many times in these movies where I just don't see twists coming because sometimes they're just outrageous. And I'm like, really? We just did that? Yes, we did. We are doing that. But I have to say, this one, it's only, quote unquote, only 2 hours and 18 minutes long or something. And that's so short for a Bollywood film. And it really is pretty conventional. Like, I would think that Westerners would not have a problem with this movie whatsoever, because to your point, there's the one song, there's at least three really solid action scenes. Yeah, maybe this is something that could be a good entree for white people that want to explore Bollywood cinema.
And it's a really interesting, use of CGI that we really haven't seen we've seen it in Western cinema, but it's been used in a different kind of, I wouldn't say more disgusting way, but a more cynical way, which is resurrecting the corpses of the dead with Carrie Fisher and Peter Cushing and Paul Walker. I mean, I could continue. There's no point, because those are three really terrible examples of decisions that were made in movies that really are just you don't have to do that. And here it's we're going to use that similar technology of taking a full face and putting it on another person's body, but we're actually just going to take the normal guy's face and do something to it to make him indistinguishable enough from the real person. And outside of a Mission Impossible movie, but there it's used as a gag. This is the entire movie where Shah Rukh Khan is giving a performance behind a CGI mask.
Right. Yeah. The when you talk about people that are hiding themselves, I just immediately thought of Tilda Swinton with some of the roles that she plays, where you're just like, oh, that was her? Okay. But as far as being behind CGI the entire time, I mean, the only thing I could really think of that immediately came to mind was Benjamin Button. And even I think that there are plenty of scenes with regular, quote unquote, regular Brad Pitt, but then it quickly moves from old man to young man, younger than Brad Pitt. The
only Western actor I can think of that's consistently shown to be able to kind of consistently emote very well, behind a wall of CGI is actor Doug Jones.
Oh yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, a man I respect so much that I can only call him actor Doug Jones. I physically cannot just call him Doug Jones, even though I just did. He is actor Doug Jones. But no, I mean, yeah, Shah Rukh Khan. And no, I read that too, Mike, where he was filming 2 other movies.
It's nuts, right?
I can't even imagine. I mean, and yeah, agree. Somebody like that, yeah, he needs to be a star anyways. I mean, yes, he's mad charismatic. He's
handsome as hell.
very handsome, very talented. But good Lord. I mean, you think about all these little, like, it just makes so many Hollywood people look like the crybabies with their, it's just like, oh, it's and the CGI was so good in this as a whole. There was honestly for me one uncanny valley moment towards the very, very end. But as a whole, and I mean, especially because just like a few days ago, like my husband and I went to the movie theater, and of course all the trailers, and I mean, because we saw the new Godzilla X Kong movie, and of course that's a lot of CGI, but that's monsters, so a lot of it's monsters, so it's a different story. But then
You're telling me they didn't get a real giant ape to play the real giant ape in the movie? Giant apes everywhere are angry.
Worst movie ever.
I don't want to talk about it, Chris.
Where's representation?
Where's
the giant apes?
I know. Tell me Mothra's not real. I won't hear those kind of poppycockery in my ears. But so many of the trailers we saw, which almost all of them looked like utter dog shit, to be honest. Like, it's pretty bleak, but so much bad CGI. And I mean, even in Godzilla X Kong, like, some of that had great CGI, and some of it was a little PS2, little PS3, and here, in Fan, and they're doing the most difficult kind where you're mimicking a human feature amidst things that you could touch, like compared to, physical surfaces and people that aren't CGI, and it works. It shouldn't work. It should not work as well as it does. And I'm somebody who's very much like 99% on the practical side of things if I have my druthers. But yeah, it was so good.
Well, and not only are they doing it once, but through the first half of the movie, I noticed so many mirrors. There are mirrors every place and reflective surfaces, and we really get to see him, Junior, being reflected multiple times. So it's not just on him, but it's all of those reflections too. And it's just like, oh my God, it's just this nut. And then as we move through the story, like after his moment where he has felt betrayed, we start to lose the mirrors and we start to move more into him and Shah Rukh Khan both on screen at the same time. So they're quote unquote mirroring each other, but the mirrors themselves kind of go away. But even like when he's on the train, where does he go? He goes into the bathroom. When he's pulled in by the conductor, it's like him and he's fixing his hair, and there's like two of him next to himself, all of these reflections. And it's just, again, great job to do.
Well, and to your point, the again, like, Heather, you're mentioning the idea of like everything now has CGI. I do wonder if this had been the way CGI had been used, if we wouldn't be in the state that we're in now, where it's like, we'll just do it in post-pro. Like, that has become kind of the death knell of so many things. You hear it like, we'll just fix it in post. It's fine. Like, I get that this movie, you had to do that. You didn't have a choice. But you also had to make sure that technology worked ahead of time. And to your point, Heather, with movies now coming out that don't look as good as this movie, which came out in 2016, the Indiana Jones film that came out last year could not make 15 minutes of Indiana Jones CGI digitally de-aged look half as good as any one of the scenes in this movie. And to your point, Mike, with the mirrors, that feels like the lamp moment of this movie from Roger Rabbit, where they were like, we're really going to push ourselves as CGI effects like artists and make sure everything lines up, because yeah, when you have the corridor crew out there now, like inspecting everything, and they didn't know that in 2016, but like, yeah, I watch them talk about these kinds of movies. They're shocked. And I'm like, why are you shocked? They're putting it all on one thing. They're not doing much else with it. It's for this singular thing. If it's not good, what the fuck did they do it for to begin with?
Absolutely. Now honestly, I'm so glad you brought up the mirror thing, Mike, because I love that. And it was so beautifully done. In fact, and one of the things I really loved about this film was the cinematography and also the composition of certain shots. And you mentioned the mirrors, and there's like a shot of the two SRKs, like early on in the jail.
Right.
And they're being reflected off like a pane of glass. And the way that was done and framed and lit was gorgeous. Like, that was such a beautiful and beautifully executed scene. Like, I think that's the other thing a lot of like Hollywood movies are missing, is that nobody really like has fun. And again, that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Chris, about the love of making film. Is you can always tell, like, if somebody's faking the funk. If somebody's just doing this because, hey, test audiences will love it and will get money, and it's just a rote thing, you can feel it. It's like having a stripper on your lap who's dead behind the eyes. She'll grind on you, but, you know, Mr. Softy is happening because you can feel it. You know it's not real. You know there's no legitimacy. And, you know, like, if somebody's having fun, you can feel that. It's like a human thing. It's like we can sense that. It's like our animal sense knows it.
I just remembered the real comparison movie for this movie is Gemini Man. When you mentioned the big stars, I was like, oh yeah, Will Smith. Has he ever doubled himself? The Gemini Man. So, which was 2019. And again, I don't think it looked nearly as good as this CG from 2016. And that movie was a failure. I mean, just not a failure, like, it might have been box office. I don't give a shit about box office. It was a failure that it didn't entertain. And it was like an experiment to see if we could do this stuff. But it was just an experiment. It was the plot itself just wasn't there. It was not a very intriguing or interesting movie at all.
I forgot that movie was a thing.
Right? Yeah.
I totally forgot about it. Sorry, Chris.
Well, had you not mentioned, I would have completely forgotten about it too.
Well, and you kind of both have already mentioned like CGI and actors breaking out through the CGI. I mean, the one that I always think of is Andy Serkis. I mean, the guy who's kind of, I mean, like he made his calling on Gollum and then King Kong and then I guess Caesar in Planet of the Apes, which for me, I think is like the best thing he ever did is that third Planet of the Apes movie.
Wait. Snokes? Come on. What about that?
God. Fuck me. Why I hadn't even thought about that. That's the God damn it. Ugh. I almost said Smog too, and I was like, no, that was Benedict Cumberbatch. And then you're like Snoke. And you know what the sad thing is? Like, I didn't even register what you said for like a good 5 seconds. I was like, oh right, Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So excited for Andy Serkis to be part of Star Wars. Then it was just like the wettest of wet farts. But Andy Serkis is amazing. I mean, he's like Doug Jones. I mean, they're both similar in that they're able to emote through things that 99% of the actors who are given a similar task just go, I don't really want to try because this sucks, so I don't want to do it. And that's not what's going on here with Shah Rukh Khan. Like he's committed to the gimmick, brother. And I mean, I mentioned I wanted you to bring up and you know kind of go into Zero in the opening, Heather, because that for me is like this movie, like you should show this movie and Zero in the same evening, not because they're like tonally the same, but because they are two of the wildest performances that are somehow more endearing than they have any right to be about the same actor playing in one movie a little person and in the other movie himself, and then a crazed psychotic fan version of himself, and they all work somehow.
They do. Well, and you know the fact that it's something occurred to me because you guys were talking about how like the SRK character Aryan or Senior he's just a person, which I like. But there are times where he is a little bit of a dick, and in fact, and at times to his detriment, because it's like, dude, this guy is mentally ill, and you're just like it's not registering for you, and you're still just being an asshole to this guy who needs help, who needs medical help because he is obviously having some issues. But in comparison, there's that actor who's like his rival early on that we see Junior like basically tie up and force him to record this like apology and all that. The Sid Kapoor character, like that guy's actually a lot nicer than the SRK character because he actually like engages with his fans, and even when his handler's like, oh, you need to get back, and the guy's like, no, let the fan in, and like he's so nice. He's actually like a really nice, like handsome guy, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, wait, maybe he was the good guy, and we just but also we don't have an action scene with him. Like he legit reacts how I think most people would in that situation where it's like, you're fight or flight, but it's like you're kind of paralyzed because you're like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? This guy who I thought was a fan is like tying me up. He's hitting me. He's threatening to like shove his trophy in my mouth. That's kind of mimed at one point. And he's just kind of like stunned, which I think is realistic, as opposed to going into like a 10-minute long action fight scene where people are tumbling, like almost like rappelling off of like large historical buildings.
It gets really fucking crazy. Like, those action scenes, you're just like, this is just a country bumpkin from out in the sticks, like from your hometown, SRK. But you are not, like, people are not these things, these superheroes that they suddenly become. And then, you know, Junior's also a superhero for no good reason. But I mean, it's fun to watch, but at the same time, it's tonally so different from the rest of the film that it just kind of sticks out for me.
Well, and I don't understand. I don't understand why they didn't lean on it more, because again, like in a lot of ways, the movie succeeds in spite of itself is kind of what it feels like in spite of the fact that there's not enough action, in spite of the fact that the movie doesn't really lean on the psychological aspects of this. Like you've mentioned, Heather, like you've also alluded to, Mike, the idea is this guy is mentally unwell. They should show him not even taking his meds. He goes off of his meds or, you know, something to that effect. Show that nothing has worked and that this guy is like, again, he puts on this performance every year and he wins and he's known as the local celebrity. You know, he's the guy who won the watermelon seed spitting contest in 1995. You know, it's that kind of thing where it's like, you know, you just happen to be, you know, there are people that are Michael Jackson impersonators. There's a guy from right where I grew up in North Texas who is like one of the world's greatest Elvis impersonators, Craig Parker. He's actually very good too. I wouldn't want to diminish his abilities as an Elvis impersonator, but that's effectively what we're talking about in this movie, is someone who would make a living being a SRK impersonator, and they don't even go there. It's like they don't want to actually get into why this character is the way that he is. And for me, that's where a lot of the interest that's left on the table lies.
Chris, the preferred term is tribute artist.
Oh, God.
Impersonator.
Oh, God.
Being a fan of Sherman Arnold, Michigan's own Elvis tribute artist, I'm aware of these things. So.
Nice. This is the learning tree. We are all sitting underneath it. Like, this is...
You'll notice none of us said midget at any point, so up until now.
the learning tree. The learning. Yeah, no, we didn't even get like a training montage. Like, you kind of like that's the other thing, is like if we had seen him being like, okay, he's going into Avenger mode, vengeance mode, and he starts working out. He starts being like, okay, if I gotta match my idol and make sure that my name is always linked with his, that I got to mirror him in every way. Because SRK is buff. That is, I mean, because even his like shoulder muscles, those
lats. I don't know.
You get the swole muscles,
the big
swole,
the ones where you can't shrug your shoulders.
Yeah, right. You're like, where's my neck is gone. It's all muscle. But I mean,
can't
like,
wear collars. My neck's too big.
But like when he's wearing like a turtleneck or something, you can see like this guy's jacked. Like SRK's in beautiful shape, and like, so it's like, and you know, if this guy's gonna go toe to toe with them, it's like, yeah, get a montage, like you said, Chris, like maybe him not taking his meds, him maybe retreating, because at what point later on the parents say, you know, he was fine until he met you and he came back different. But we never see any real interaction with his family other than him selling the cyber cafe, which my question was like, where did he get all this money as like basically a young adult to own his own business and get all this money for selling it when he's still living at home?
I think it's all those talent contests. That seems to be his only real income source. And he gets like, I don't know how much 20,000 whatevers are compared to other things, but he's got that big wad of cash when he's taking the train that he refuses to buy a ticket because he wants to travel the same way as Hero traveled. Okay. And he's peeling off $100 bills or whatever for 100 rupees for a vegetarian meal. I'm like, okay, that's my fan theory. And I do mean that as a pun.
$139, by the way, is how much money he won.
Oh, okay.
It's effectively like, say, 250 American, 20,000 rupees. It's about 250. And yeah. So that's the thing. Like, his parents go, you're not going to spend $250 to go to Delhi to see Shah Rukh Khan. Like, there you go.
They're probably like, it's going to cost more.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like you both have alluded to, the beginning of the movie doesn't really do a very good job in setting up what the actual issue at hand is, which is this guy is unwell and none of this is okay to begin with. But it's kind of played with such flights of fancy that he's in these talent shows, and look at him, he's juxtaposing himself with himself, and he's doing these dances and everybody loves it. I love that comes back later in the movie as kind of this sinister thing and it's not even sinister, it's actually for his own good, because again, he is the villain of the movie. But like, those scenes are kind of unfortunately few and far between in the second act of the movie. The second act of the movie just kind of meanders all over the place in a way that by the time we get to the third act, where it's like a full-blown action movie, it doesn't feel as earned as it should have. And again, I'm not saying that the action movie couldn't have worked. It plenty well could have, like we've kind of already talked about in these films. Normal people do crazy things all the time. But here it feels like even a step too far. Because again, like, they don't allude to him having really made any changes. He's just, we don't see him for a year. Okay.
Yeah, it felt a little random. It to me, like, it's just like, I'm like, oh, okay. And yeah, like, it doesn't, the film as a whole is very enjoyable, as I think we're all pretty much in agreement on that. But yeah, that's random. And also just the fact that a guy that his thing is computers and owned a cyber cafe, all of a sudden is able to do like triple like somersaults and like parkour.
Like, I believe SRK's character can, because he's an actor, like, more believably. But yeah, not the local dude, like you mentioned, Mike, from your neighborhood. Like, when we all knew somebody like this in high school that was like really into something or someone, probably to what one would say in this film's case, an unhealthy level. But again, like this needed to be painted even more kind of sinister. And where the movie goes at the end of the movie, it kind of thinks it took it there. Like, and let's talk about the third act, because I think we all really want to, because that's where probably most of the problems lie for the movie, at least in the final execution of the movie and what it's ultimately trying to say. So at the end of the movie, you have SRK confronting himself, his junior version, on a rooftop after they've essentially bought their way up there, and they're both at their wits' end. And he essentially goes, hey, you need to go get help and like stop and start living for yourself and stop living for being me, or, trying to be me, and you are yourself, and start living as yourself and be yourself. And he goes, nope, fuck you. You didn't say sorry to me, and throws himself off of a building, which is just like,
that whole time you never said the word sorry.
Such a binary choice we have here, apparently. I mean, I guess if we really want to dig into the idea that this guy's unwell, I guess the movie makes it pretty clear in the most drastic way possible that this man is clearly unwell. But I don't feel like the suicide at the end of this movie is remotely earned at all. It kind of just feels like we don't know where to go with this movie, really. Like, I get what they were going for, where it's like our names will be linked forever, but like, so what? Like, Jodie Foster and John Hinckley are linked forever, but I think Jodie Foster at this point is probably more known for other things, because as time passes and people forget and new things are made, people tend to forget those things. Most people now don't think about Richard Gere and the Gerbil anymore. Like, that's not what anybody thinks about. That was a thing.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Sorry.
Team Gerbil. All the sorry.
When I was watching the movie, there's a moment where it's the two guys that come to pick up Junior after it has been revealed to Senior what he did with Senior's rival. The two guys that come to pick him up are tall. They've got these mustaches. I can't find their names on IMDb, but I would not be surprised if they're two of the guys that hang out with, well, maybe not because it's South Indian, but they so look like those dudes that hang out with Jailer, the ones that are sharpshooters.
Oh, yeah. Two Indian heavies.
Yes, I will agree with you that the suicide is unearned, but I have to say it is shot beautifully with the lights in the alleyway, and then I think you mentioned Blowout earlier. All of the fireworks going off overhead so reminded me of Jack at the end of Blowout when he's cradling Nancy Allen's body in his arms there.
Oh my, okay. I'm glad you brought up the fireworks. That was when I started laughing because I was like,
Bridge too far.
I was like, what? Like, this is, I mean, the suicide, I didn't have a total issue with it just because, like, there's the whole thing where he's talking about you've ruined my life, even though he's ruined his own life because, and I have to mention my personal favorite twist is when Senior is like, okay, basically, okay, you want to go, kid? Okay, let's see how you like it, and goes to his parents' house, talks to him from his right next to his parents, being it's like, oh, you're gonna see the real me now. I'm not a star now. I'm just a guy from Delhi. Like, and he's all like in like a badass mode, and he impersonates his stalker for the talent show while his stalker is watching him aghast.
The best part of the whole goddamn movie.
Thank you. Oh my God. I was almost clapping. I was like, great. I was living for that moment. I loved it. So with him suicide, because his parents at this point they've been forced to face the fact that, like, yeah, your son has lost his shit and he's literally trying to kill people now and shooting at a public space. So yeah, I mean, there's no turning back. As sweet as the thought is it for Senior to be like, basically say, no worries, I'll go back and act like nothing happened. You do that too. I'm like, I'm pretty sure the police might have an issue with that. I mean,
not something, yeah.
Not to mention the laws that you have broken in other countries on top of that, and breaking and entering, scaring his poor kids and his wife, and just all kinds of craziness. But there was kind of a beautiful, like, sort of fuck you about being like, you didn't say sorry. And it's like, well, this is why this guy was never in a real relationship.
Can't take it. He couldn't take not hearing sorry, apparently.
You cannot have a healthy human relationship of any stripe without at least being willing to say, you know what, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, or just to let shit go. So that's just gonna let shit go. It's healthy. You can't hold on to things like, whether somebody, didn't clean the toilet seat, or if it's your favorite superstar and they snubbed you and may have thrown you in jail because you may have kidnapped somebody against the bill.
Eaten just a little bit,
just a wee bit, but
yeah, just a wake up call.
The way that suicide, Mike, you nailed it. It's perverse because it's beautifully done, and it's like a hero's death.
Right.
They have given him the moon pushes of death scenes because it's gorgeous. The music's nice. And also we got fireworks. And this is where I thought it was a little uncanny valley when you have that camera angle where his face, the camera angle where his face is facing flat straight up. And it's almost like Rictuscreen. It's so close to Rictusy. I was a little unsettled by that, but it's a death scene. You probably should be unsettled, but I was like, okay, movie, I get it. The total whiplash. You're just getting that one little more like whips out in there of just like, what are we? I don't even know what's going on now. Okay, he's beatific. Nice. But I appreciate it. I'm like, if you're gonna go nuts in a film, embrace it.
Oh yeah.
It's the only way it's going to work.
I kind of wish the movie had gone more nuts. Like, frankly, like I don't know, like and then that's kind of what we're all saying is like, I wish that there was more of the stuff we enjoyed, which is the movie just being very strange, like in a very specific way. And I actually come to think of it and kind of surprised, given how successful this movie was, that this movie hasn't been remade in the States, like with a major Western actor. Like you mentioned Poppycock does not count. That Fred Durst movie with John Travolta doing a terrible British accent does not. God, the fact
the Fanatic.
The Fanatic. Yeah. God, that movie is good Lord. This movie, I think I'm surprised they haven't, some aspiring, Western filmmaker didn't watch and go, well, if we get the right actor, they probably would do this in a heartbeat, like a Johnny Depp type. someone who's like, just like, I'll do it just cause like I'm and you can, because again, you could lampoon the real person at the same time. And
well, yeah, it's like Bowfinger almost, where you've got the two brothers. Like, you find out at some point that the second Eddie Murphy is the brother of the first Eddie Murphy, but the first Eddie Murphy is completely insufferable, lampooning himself, which I found to be great.
Right. And again, like, this movie doesn't even really pull the trigger on any Shah Rukh Khan stuff either. Like, it's, and look, that's probably because he's the one in the movie. If it weren't him, but it was a character meant to be him, kind of like, and again, maybe another thing that's similar to this, but it's done with practical effects is a Tropic Thunder, where it's like, you're kind of speaking to the real people, but like, again, Ben Stiller is playing Tom Cruise in that movie, which is why they're lampooning Tom Cruise. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying SRK is not a well-intentioned, self-aware human being. I'm not saying that. He probably is. He wouldn't have gotten as far in life as the level and caliber of actor that he is if he wasn't half self-aware, at least completely self-aware. But because he's playing the character in this movie that is himself in effectively real life, they don't send it up. It's just, he's just there. And it may have even been better if he had been dialed up a little bit. But again, I think the movie doesn't really ever pick a lane, unfortunately. But I will say the scene at the end of the movie where he sees Junior in the crowd is just it's such a, what the hell? Like,
be haunted forever.
I mean, guess.
Yeah, it that reminded me of like a Taxi Driver moment with like Betsy getting into the back of the cab. I was just like, okay, we're gonna end this way. All right.
Yeah, like I think we get it. Like, I actually get it the first time you did it, movie. And that, for me, I think that scene where Shah Rukh Khan's playing himself, seeing himself, and they just stay on him, and it's like the very slow motion freak out of him seeing himself. I think that scene is horrifying. Like that, and you get to see like the genuine insanity in this character, and like, oh shit, like now he's seen it, and now we're really in trouble. But they kind of undercut it by having it come back at the end of the movie and be like, he will haunt your dreams. Like, what is this? The Twilight Zone all of a sudden? Like, come on. We get it. I get it, movie. Like, this movie is not playing fair with its emotional kind of cards. It's holding some back because, again, it has to make Shah Rukh Khan, I guess, relatable and likable as a character. But I think it would have been a little bit more interesting if he had been kind of a bigger piece of shit throughout the entire movie. Just to underscore the fact that at the end of the movie, this guy also gets what he deserves. Like, I don't actually think Shah Rukh Khan's character in the movie deserves to be saddled with this psychotic human being that was obsessed with him. Yes, he did not say he was sorry, but to Heather's point, get a fucking grip, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, well, especially when he keeps being like, you still didn't say you're sorry. It's like, dude, you just framed him for a whole bunch of illegal activity in a foreign country that he's not a citizen of. He's got to deal with like this third-rate, pissy ass, it's Peter Capaldi, like, like officer. Who was slightly a little racist. I felt like he was like, yeah,
he definitely was.
Oh my gosh, I was, and I'm like, that guy's the villain. Can we just have him stalk his ass? Like,
Right.
like SRK's not that. I mean, even SRK in this film, in his most dickish moments, he's not that bad. It's nothing transgressively bad, And honestly, if they had mentioned in the movie, hey, he's making 3 films and he's got kids. Okay, yeah, he's not going to be Mary Sunshine all the time. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. So, yeah. And that whole end scene was weird because it's like, because the way that the characters were looking at each other, I'm like, is this supposed to be scary? Or is this some sort of like transcendent, like, there you are, my little stalker ghost or something, I don't know. It just seemed tonally, again, because like, think about crowd scenes in A Perfect Blue, like, and that's a very different movie, and I know it's an anime, but But like her stalker, when you see his face in those crowds, it's immediately like terrifying. It's scary, and you feel for her, you worry for her, you know. And I feel like if we're seeing a dead ghost of a stalker, that should be a similar vibe.
Well, I'm just glad that they didn't have him mouth the words "I'm sorry" and then have the ghost like fade away. That would have been so bad.
Well, at least they didn't replace the ghost with Hayden Christensen. Speaking of Star Wars, I guess, and you know, again, because we have Wikipedia and someone wrote the Wikipedia explanation for the movie, the Wikipedia explanation is that he sees the fan in the crowd, and in seeing him, he appreciates the other fans more, and he re-engages with the other fans in the audience. Like, are you fucking with me? Is that, I mean, I guess you can take that away from that scene, but I mean, the movie doesn't really have that discussion at any point, and having it in the last 30 seconds of the movie, to what end? I like this movie as a character piece, as a weird character study of what a fan can look like in a culture where fandom is part of the film going experience, you know, liking a certain actor to the point of, I love this actor and I'll only go see their movies, but they don't mine it enough, which is kind of strange because they're not like anybody else is going to make this movie for this culture this way. Like, this is the one time you're doing this. Better bring your A game. And I'm not saying it wasn't their A game, but I don't think it was as much of their A game as it could have been.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I saw that Wikipedia entry too, and I thought that was a very curious interpretation because it's like, is it to say, like, I mean, if we had a moment where he's like, you know what, a lot of these people are crazy, but at least they're just regular crazy and not stalker, like forging IDs and wearing fake beards crazy. No, that was, it handled so weird. It's almost like part of me almost wishes they would have gone darker and be like where he keeps seeing different people looking kind of like the fan, where it's just, you realize this is but again, it's like me probably wanting more of the parasocial kind of aspects brought to the forefront, because I feel like there is potential for that. Like, I feel, but you know what? I enjoyed the film. Gosh, I have, you know, somebody could definitely do a lot worse than the fan, as evidenced by the trailers that I had to sit through. Twisters? Really?
Oh. At first I thought you were talking about the trailers that you had to sit through on Fan, and I'm like,
no, those trailers were fine. No, I mean, it was fine enough for me to tell Chris, like, oh my god, let's do an episode.
No, you're right. Twisters was absolutely awful. They missed their big chance. There's no cow in the trailer. The cow sold the first movie.
Well, they should have had 2 cows.
Exactly. That's what it should have been.
One for each.
Right.
I was more of a fan in the first movie of the smoldering chemistry between Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
My God, listen,
could not stand one another, apparently. That's real. That's real. They apparently hated each other so much that when doing the footage for the Universal Studios Twister ride, they refused to do it together. So if you go to the ride and see it, that's why they're in 2 different places, because they hated each other so much they didn't want to do it together.
Oh, that's funny.
I had no idea.
Spilling the the Twister tea.
Titster. Wow, that's a whole different movie. I think that was the porn parody.
Oh my!
This time it'll be This Ain't Twisters.
XXX porn parody.
They've been so lazy with porn titles.
Right.
They have.
Let's go back to the days of Hannah Does Her Sisters and on Golden Blonde.
Exactly. Edward Penis Hands.
Yes. The Poonies instead of the Goonies. That's maybe my favorite.
Well, Chris and I are going to have to watch the Sapornos at some point.
Sapornos.
Talking all about the HBO classic.
And you know how much hot incest there is all the time in that show. The sexual tension between Tony and his daughter is off the hook.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I just don't like. You know, there's a Simpsons XXX porn parody out there too, and it's just there's no incest because they don't do it, but everybody clicked on it expecting there would be. So you know, shame on them. Shame on them.
Oh Lord, we have entered a dark realm.
This is a dark alley. We went down the wrong alley, folks.
Even my degenerate soul has limits. Like, good night.
I wash my hands of thee.
Yes. Splish splash, get the holy water. We're taking a bath. and that because it's dark sided. But when it's not dark sided, yeah, I did like this film as a whole. I do wish there were things, but honestly, Chris, you made a great point. I think if somebody, I'm surprised that a Westerner hasn't tried to do it, but I'm glad because honestly, if they did try to do it, they would fuck it up. It would be terrible. They'd probably have some they'd probably have imagine if it was Pete Davidson.
Butthole Eyes himself, as he claims.
Threw up in my own mouth. Wow.
I know. Well, and imagine, Butthole Eyes. Is that a reference to the late Eric Carmen, who just passed away with his classic song from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack? Oh, wait, that was Hungry Eyes. I'm sorry.
Butthole Eyes, they're watching you. I thought that was a Hall & Oates song.
They see your every move.
I mean, Butthole Eyes, they're taking a poo. They see your every poo. That's the Weird Al approved version. See, on the fly, baby. I got them for days. Poop themed songs. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
it writes itself.
Yeah,
it really does.
The thing is, because even we don't really, does Hollywood even have I don't think it does, but I don't know. You guys, honestly, you watch a lot more more recent movies than I do. Do you think, is there a current day equivalent over here in the States that could even hold SRK's shock?
I think there's one person that comes close. But I guess two people. I could see two people playing the role in this movie. Either on the nose, Tom Cruise, or Robert Downey Jr.
I would add, of all people, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, I myself.
Something. I mean, and he'd be so cool about it at first, and then he would just continue to get angry, and you really haven't seen angry Keanu other than John Wick,
Right. And even then, he's not really that angry.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. He's not Nicolas Cage, who is another person who could do this, and he kind of did with that the Genius movie.
Genius movie.
The one with him and Pedro Pascal, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. There we go.
Yeah, that movie was okay.
Yeah, because he was doing Sailor as well as himself.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you know what? That's an interesting comparison. Yeah, I enjoy this more than that. I mean, again, if we're talking about fan worship and fan culture, that movie kind of is the closest that we could look at immediately. But I mean, to your point, Heather, and we've said this plenty of times on the Bollywood Cinema Club, and it probably bears repeating here on the Culture Cast, there aren't any actors of their equivalent in the States. There's not an equivalent of Rajnikant. There's not an equivalent of SRK. There's not an equivalent of Ranbir Kapoor, who I'm 99% convinced is supposed to be the Sid Kapoor character in this movie, which is the name of the first movie Ranbir Kapoor got known for. Was his character in that movie was named Sid. So I'm like, is that what this is? He also kind of looks like him too, but I don't think Ranbir Kapoor is again, that character in the movie is not even an asshole. So it's actually beside the point, but I don't think there's anybody like a lot of these really big Indian actors. And I don't even think you have to be that big because the one actor, Heather, that showed up a bunch of times then when we did Bollywood Cinema Club a year ago, those episodes still haven't come out yet, is Johnny Lever. And he's not a massive name, but he's in plenty of things and he probably has massive amounts of fans for his stuff. So yeah, I mean, the fan celebrity culture in our country it's once we figured out that Mel Gibson takes a poop like the rest of us and also is a massive bigot, which is his own problem, not ours. But, that Tom Hanks takes his dog for a walk. Now that we know that, they're not nearly as exciting as they used to be. And that's kind of what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Also, I just feel like they're a little more bland for some reason. And maybe it's because of the lack of mystery, but I also just think I don't know, there's a quality. Maybe that's why, when it comes to more modern actors, of course, I love old school character actors too. I'm always more into the character actors because I feel like they're the ones that tend to have some kind of sparkle about them. Even when they're in a tiny, like say like Dylan Baker. Like even if Dylan Baker's in something for 10 minutes, I'm immediately like, oh my God, it's Dylan Baker. And I get excited. And he has a certain presence, where, there's so many, like, to me, just kind of like faceless leads that I just can't. I mean, there's so many, like, I'll see people talk about actors and actresses, and I'm just like, I don't know, like somebody talk about like Sophie Baxter's cleavage, and I don't even know who that is.
Who?
Well, there's like, who's that one that I suddenly have seen Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, from Immaculate.
I never heard of her until Madam Web, and then now she's everywhere.
Madam Web, best film of 2024.
Fuck yeah.
Apparently,
yeah. I've worked with her before. Apparently, she's on The White Lotus.
Don't do stupid things. Seriously, don't do stupid things. And thank you. You're welcome. That's my line reading from Madame Web.
Yeah, that's up there. That's some crackling dialogue they have in that movie.
Really sizzles on the page.
Mm-hmm.
God. I'm kind of with you, Heather. Maybe this is just me, quote, getting older, unquote, and becoming more of a get off my lawn type of old man. But yeah, now the line is so blurred. It's like, where are you from? Are you from something? Are you from TikTok? Are you from YouTube? Or are you just famous for farting on the internet? Like at this point, at this point, you can literally here's an example. I was in LA a couple weeks ago, and I saw, while walking out of the bathroom, and I won't say who, a pretty famous YouTuber that my parents watch. And like, I called my parents when I got out of the bathroom, and I was like, hey, I think I saw this YouTuber that you guys watch while I was walking out of the bathroom. They were like, you should go say hi to him. And I was like, guys, no fucking way. But I was like, but I'll do it for you guys. I was like, I'll do it for y'all because I love you guys so much. So I like walked up to him and I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, and I feel bad now in retrospect. Like I was like, I don't watch your stuff, but my parents do. I was like, oh, sorry. And then he was like, oh, man, that's really nice. And I was like, yeah, okay, bye. But like, again, like he was able to walk around in the airport with like, and there are people in the world that cannot do that. And I think that is becoming less and less every day. And also, I think it's becoming less of a thing anyways. Like, I don't know, like everybody can have their 15 minutes of fame now, even if you create it for yourself. So it feels a lot less exciting when you can just be like, oh, I'm going to make YouTube videos and get famous that way. The path to being famous is a lot more wide open than it used to be.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, actually. That's also like, that guy sounds nice. I'm glad at least he wasn't a dick.
Yeah, it was very nice too. I mean, I kind of came off as a dick by accident. I was like, it's not that I don't watch your stuff. I don't watch your stuff, but someone else enjoys your content. So at least that's what's important, right?
I would have taken the comp.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as opposed to, what do you do? Podcasts? No, nobody does that to us anymore, right? Mike, final thoughts on Fan.
Yeah, like I said before, I think this would be a good entry point for people to get into Bollywood films if they haven't before, because it is pretty Western concept. We have seen this before. I think the action scenes are great. Like the one musical number that we have. Almost wish that there were more. And yeah, it's on Amazon Prime right now, and the subtitles are very good, which is surprising. This is one of the few films, Chris, that we can say the subtitles were really good. So thank you for once, Amazon.
If it's a YRF film, it has a very high likelihood of being well subtitled, as you can probably tell. Yeah. Once we kind of start deviating off of the big studios, your mileage is going to really vary. Yeah. Heather, what about you? Final thoughts on Fan?
You know what? I think it's an interesting film. I think it's got a lot of fascinating twists. It's got some gorgeous imagery, and it's got a great performance by SRK. Could be better, could be a hell of a lot worse. So I liked it. I'm so glad we got to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm glad that we finally got to talk about it. It did live up to everything I was hoping. It's kind of like, for me, Heather, when we did Ega, which was, again, like such a crazy concept of a movie, and yet it works.
I love Ega.
Yeah, Ega is like, Ega, when a man is resurrected as a fly and then fights a human being the entire movie as a fly, if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. But this movie is up there for me in terms of like the highest of high concept things I've seen from Indian cinema. And just like Iga, this movie is way better than it realistically, if you describe it to someone, would have any right working. But this movie works really well. It has some problems, but again, the problems don't get in the way, at least for me and clearly for y'all, of my ability to enjoy this movie. And yeah, I think to your point, Mike, this is one that should be on a list of, Bollywood movies that would be easy for you to get into because A, it's easy to find, and B, it has the biggest, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's, the biggest name in Indian cinema in it. The last thing I did want to mention, because none of us mentioned it, the thing in this movie that I really appreciated that SRK did is he plays himself as Junior from time to time, and it is the part of the movie I wish they had mined the most, because when he turns that Shah Rukh Khan on and does his normal voice and does the mannerisms, that's where the movie was starting to really shine. It's like, oh shit, he can do him too. What does that mean? It never really gets mined. But again, if this movie were ever made in the States, that would probably be the direction that they go, because you've seen this movie do its thing and you would need to go a little further. So yeah, I think this movie lived up to the expectations that I had for sure. And look, it's an SRK movie. You really can't go wrong. So on that note, we'll take a break, play some ads, and we'll come back with the end of the episode.
Hi, I'm Susan.
And I'm Sharon. And we're the hosts of 80s TV Ladies.
Check us out wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 80s TV Ladies.
You can find interviews and exclusive behind-the-scenes content on all of your favorite 80s TV Ladies.
80s TV Ladies is the place to go. Please join us.
Hi, this is HP from Noise Junkies.
And this is Father Malone from Dark Destinations.
Please join us as we examine one of the greatest sitcoms in television history, Taxi, on Night Mr. Walters, a Taxi podcast.
Good night, Mr. Walters.
Good evening, and welcome to Night Gallery.
Thank you, Rod. And I want to welcome everyone to Midnight Viewing, where once a month we talk all about your follow-up to The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's Night Gallery.
They say it's Rod Serling's Night Gallery, and it isn't really Rod Serling's Night Gallery, it's somebody else's.
Oh, we know. We talk about it a lot. Your curators at Midnight Viewing are the projection booth's Mike White.
What can happen to human beings when trust is wiped out by suspicion?
And CultureCast's Chris Stashew.
Small boy encased in a crystal ball.
And I'm Father Malone.
The kind of thing that usually infests nightmares.
Join us monthly at Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast at weirdingwaymedia.com.
Doesn't remotely belong to me. I have no proprietary interest in that at all.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर। नाश्ते में क्या चाहिए? चाय, बिस्कुट या डायरेक्ट लंच पे गोली? लाइफलाइन समझता है? तेरी छोटी थी लंबी कर दी। पैसा
नहीं है।
ओह नहीं है। मेरे दो अनमोल रतन, एक है राम, दूसरा है लखन। पहले कौन मरेगा, राम या लखन?
बिल्ला सर, पैसे इसकी गर्लफ्रेंड लारा के पास हैं, वो इससे उड़ा कर ले गई है। मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है।
तुझे देखते ही तेरी कमजोरी समझ गया था। जहां देखी लौंडिया, नाचने लगा डांडिया। मर गया बेचारा। हीरो बनकर झाड़ के पीछे हीरोइन के साथ नाचने की खुजली नहीं होती तो विलन बन सकता था, बिल्ला बन सकता था। लेकिन भागी तेरी हीरोइन तुझे मेरे लिए छोड़ के। अफसोस।
मुझे मौत दी तो इस कारपेट पे से खून के धब्बे धुलवाने के बाद सिर्फ लॉन्ड्री का बिल वापस आएगा। मौका दिया तो शायद तेरे 25 लाख वापस आ जाएंगे।
तेरे? आपके 25 लाख, समझा बेटा?
लंबी रेस के घोड़े को गोली नहीं मारते बिल्ला, गुड़ और चना खिलाते हैं, फिर दांव लगा के पैसा कमाते हैं।
पैसे तो मैं तुझे बार में भी ना जाके कमा सकता। सोचना यह है कि तुझे बार में नचाऊं या रेस में भगाऊं।
So that's right. On the final episode of April for Bollywood Cinema Month over on the Culture Cast, we are going to be talking about Musafir, which is another Indian cinema movie. I've never seen it, and I know nothing about it. I like to go into these movies knowing as little as possible. But we'll be joined by Cullen Gallagher, which is fun because I haven't talked to Cullen in 8 months or something. It's insane. Until then, where can people find you and all the things that you work on, Heather?
Well, you can find me over at my Linktree, linktree.com/Mondo Heather. There you will find various articles. You'll find my website, mondoheather.com, my Patreon at Mondo Heather, my social media, and various episodes of lovely podcasts I get to appear on, including the Culture Cast with Urga Music War, whereas me, Chris, and the brilliant and always fantastic Rachel McFadden. And just go over to my Linktree, linktree.com/Mondo Heather.
What about you, Mike?
And everything that I do is available over at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's everything that's worth listening to. So definitely check out everything at weirdingwaymedia.com. How about you, Chris?
As for me, weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can find almost everything. Mike, there's only one thing you can't find at weirdingwaymedia.com, and that's Rankin' on Bond, which we do over on your Patreon and my Patreon for the $10 and up level. What is Rankin' on Bond, you might ask? Well, you and I and Richard, I know you're there. I hope. Tell me more.
Where am I? What's happening?
Dear stranger. Rankin' on Bond, you and I and the Mothman Prophecy's own Rich Haddam talk about James Bond once a month. And if that's a thing you're into, which if you're listening to this, you might be, you can go and find over at patreon.com/culturecast or patreon.com/projection booth. So yeah, all the places that you can go to find the stuff that I work on, like Mike mentioned, weirdingwaymedia.com. Heather, Mike, thank you both so much for joining me. This was fun. We haven't done an episode of the three of us in quite some time. It's fun.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.